Hello, everyone. My name is Merle Whitney, and I am a Microsoft certified trainer. In this demonstration, we'll be taking a look at placing locks on resources in Azure. At the end of the demonstration, you will be provided with a link to a hands-on lab exercise and instructional guide, which will allow you to do a self-paced exercise on placing locks on a resource group. Let us look at an example. Let us say that your company has provisioned resources in Azure. One of the concerns that you might have as an administrator is the ease at which possibly a junior admin can accidentally erase or delete any resource within your resource group simply with a few clicks. Azure gives us the facility to place locks on resources. You can associate a lock with a subscription or with a resource group or with a resource itself. We're going to create the resource in this lab. We're going to add the disk to the resource group. And then we're going to add a lock on the resource group. And then we will test that lock that we're going to add. So for our lab demonstration, we're just going to go ahead and click Next. And in the Azure portal, we're going to click on Resource Groups. We're going to add a resource group by clicking on Add. Let's scroll along a bit here to the right-hand side. And we want to give the resource group a name. So we're going to click in the text box to the right of resource group. And we can either type the name of the resource group by clicking in the empty space and type in the resource group name, or we can do a shortcut by clicking on Next on the screen below, which will bring in the name of the resource group. Let's scroll down again to the right. We see that the resource has to be in a region, and the region that we have here is East US. So we're going to keep that region. Scroll down another time. And all we need to do here is to click on Review and Create. Then click on Create to create the resource group. Once we've created the resource group, we now need to create the disk, which is our resource, inside of the resource group. So we're going to go back to the portal by clicking on Home. We're going to select Disk, and we're going to click Add. To place a disk in the resource group we created, we're going to select the down arrow here, and we're going to select the resource group that we created, which was Resource GP1. And we also need to give the disk a name. We're going to click in the text box to the right of disk name. And again, as a shortcut to bring in the name, we're going to click in the empty space and click Next as a shortcut for bringing in the name. We can see that the region is still East US. We're going to leave availability and source type as default. And we want to change the size of the disk. So let's scroll along a bit to the right. And we want to click on Change Size. We're going to change the size of the disk to 32 gig. So we're going to click on 32 gig and select OK. And we can see that the size of the disk has changed here to 32 gig. So we can go ahead and click Review and Create, and then click on Create. So we now have the disk inside of the resource group. What we need to do now is to place a lock on the resource. So we're going to click on Home to go back to the Azure portal. And we're going to select Resource Groups and choose the resource group that we created, which is here at the bottom, Resource GP1. And on the blade of the resource group, we're going to click on Locks. We're going to add a lock by clicking on Add. And we have to give the lock a name. So we're going to click here in the empty space and then click on Next to bring in the name of the lock. And we're calling the lock Delete Lock. Next, we have to choose the lock type. Now we're going to see that there are two lock types. One is read only and one is delete. We're going to choose the delete lock, and when we choose the delete lock, it means that the person cannot delete any resource within that resource group. Remember, we said previously that you can associate the lock with a subscription, you can associate the lock with a resource group, and you can also associate the lock with a resource. We're putting a lock on the resource group, which means that anything inside the resource group will not be deleted or cannot be deleted. So we're going to go ahead and click on delete. And here in the section where you see notes, you can add a note there, and the note will describe the purpose of the delete lock, and that's optional. Let's go ahead and click on OK. So now we created that delete lock. We're going to close the blade for the resource group lock. Now we're going to go to the resource group again and try to see if we can delete the disk. So we can see disk 1, which is the disk we created. We're going to click on that disk to open it, and we're going to try to delete that disk by clicking on delete. So let's see what happens. We're going to click on delete. The message comes up, do you want to delete the disk 1? And we're going to go ahead and say yes. And you can see the message on the right, failed to delete disk. So it means that the lock worked. Now, if you wish to remove that lock, all you would need to do is to come to the right, click on locks. You will see the lock, the name of the lock that you created. And to the right-hand side, you will see an edit button and a delete button. As long as you select that lock and you click on delete, the lock will be deleted, and then the person will be able to do what they want with the disk. They will be able to delete it. But once that lock is on, you will not be able to delete the resource. You're going to close the blade. We're going to close the resource group. And I hope that this demonstrated how you would go about creating a lock on a resource so as to prevent someone from accidentally deleting a resource. I'm going to place a link to the lab for you so that you'll be able to go through the lab and do the lab yourself. This is the end of the demonstration. I want to thank you for listening.